Welcome to the Build Better Blueprint, the podcast where we discuss the foundations of real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join Christian Cardamone as he shares insights, strategies, and stories that will empower you to level up your business, your lifestyle, and your impact. Let's build a better blueprint for success, starting now.
Hey, this is Christian Cardamone. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Build Better Blueprint. I'm really excited today, guys. I've got a colleague of mine, Fred Hubler. Fred is an accomplished entrepreneur with more than 25 years of experience in both financial services and technology. In 2003, Fred founded Creative Capital Wealth Management Group and has grown the firm to over 25 states. Creative Capital Wealth Management Group features a trademark retainer-based wealth management program and also provides access to accredited investments. Fred can also be seen giving his outlook on the economy and the stock market both locally and nationally. Fred has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, U.S. News and World Report, TD Ameritrade, and countless podcasts, traditional and digital forums. Fred is also an online contributor at Forbes.com on social media. Fred's an innovative leader with a keen eye for unique solutions and a vast knowledge in alternative wealth creation strategies. I'm stoked to, Fred, you're like the mystery man behind the curtain with finance. And I'm so thankful for your time today. Thanks for being here.
Nice to be on here. Great to be on here. Good to see you. I'm here to serve, not sell. So, bring it on. I want to share everything that I know.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate that and your openness and willingness to meet my audience. So I want to start off by just kind of having you introduce yourself to my audience. We're big here on entrepreneurship, self-development, growth, personal leadership, and just kind of like overall abundance for everybody. And you have just like a cool story, man, that you basically, you're a self-made man, have an enormous, company that you've built across half the freaking country. And so we want to learn about you and what this company does and how you serve people. And let's jump right in.
So I started like everyone else with a W-2, and I didn't grow up with money. Delaware County, Pennsylvania. So I still say water. If you watch the Saturday Night Live where they talk about murder your dirter on the Schuylkill, that's where I live in. And so I always grew up thinking that the rich knew things the rest of us didn't. And to this day, and I'm sure there's people that work as hard, but no one worked harder than my parents. And they were always middle income. And so I figured out that I want to be kind of like a doctor, but I don't like, bodily fluids. And I really wanted the lifestyle of, and I grew up in the 80s. So I wanted the lifestyle of a jet setter executive coming from nowhere. So I decided that IT would, it was 95, I graduated. So technology was everywhere now. So I got an internship and had a W-2 job, Fortune 500 tech company. And my hero's journey had a bunch, like everyone else's, peaks and valleys. And I never realized it because I'm always looking forward. I don't remember what I did yesterday. I might not remember what I did yet, today, depending how busy the day is. And I don't like to stay in the back. So my son, I have 13-year-old twins. He's like, Dad, everywhere you go, there's like a historical event. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, your first job, I eventually became part of and the project manager for that Fortune 500 company for Y2K. For all of North America and Brussels. I worked 60 hours a week. And the day I got the promotion, which was unpaid, by the way, it was just, my boss's boss, my boss said, hey, Charlie needs to talk to you. So I go to his office and I had just got my wisdom teeth out. So I look like a chipmunk. Charlie says, sit down, Frank, which I knew right there. This is corporate America. He thinks my name's Frank. And looking back, I was 26, 27. I was the fall guy. I didn't fall, but I was the fall guy. Looking back, I'm like, all right, they just paid for my MBA. They needed someone to kind of do it. And the interesting thing, and these are the reality checks I think all of us need to have. 26-year-old, having guys 50 and above report to me for this special project, which is, again, once in a lifetime. And no one really understands, if you didn't live through it, how bad it was perceived to be. Planes were going to fly out of the ground. The Mayans stopped counting, the end of the world. So I'm thinking to myself, should I spend my time doing this or go out and party because it's, 1999 and, Prince wrote a song about it. So I decided probably not the end of the world. And maybe they just stopped because the circle they wrote the calendar on was only so big. The rock was only so big. Long story short, as my wife would say, land the plane. We did it all. And one of the things they took away from is, how do I get someone older, richer, more experienced than me to listen to me, knowing that I was an intern that turned into a full-time job that for this had a special special project designation. And it reminds me of the cleaner from Pulp Fiction. I was just there to clean. And so I came up with an idea of making a group manager. And this is leverage. So the concept when you AI, I want you to know everyone has leverage, and good leverage. I don't mean holding it. And so you have to find out what it is based on the board you see. So 25, 26-year-old guy, talking to guys making six figures in 1995 that, the mahogany desks, and they don't care about me. So how do I get them to do the job, which is, are you white? So I simplified it, and I made their job in harm's way. So if you were a group manager, you probably had 30, 40, 50, maybe 130 people reporting to you. And I'm coming in saying, hey, Christian, you got to fix your stuff. Okay, Fred, I'll get right to it. I made a form, and I had the authority of the CEO. Like it was, I was blessed for this one project. My own boss reported to me for this one project, which is a whole other weird thing. But you had to, as a manager, a group manager, had to sign off and do one of the 3 R's. So find the leverage and then simplify it so you can actually do it in real life. Because this, everything can be complicated just for complication's sake. You had to sign a form that I made. I wish I kept it because it should be on in my personal library of stuff I came up with. You had to, and I called it the 3 R's. You had to sign that you removed the mainframe or the computer that was not Y2K compliant. You replaced it in your own budget with a new one and showed me the certificate that says you're Y2K compliant, or you remediated it. You fixed your own system. That's all I needed. And you had up until September to do it, and we checked in, blah, blah, blah. So that was beginning of being in corporate America. And for me, it was my Super Bowl. Like there was never going to be a bigger game. I postponed my first marriage. If it's the first marriage, it didn't work, but I postponed it because I'm like, hey, this is what we need to do, blah, blah, blah. The raise, the promise of everything that was happening didn't happen. So after Y2K, never got any of that. And I realized the corporate ladder wasn't for me. There was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of people taking credit for what I did. And I decided then that I wanted to do something else. So that was, the hero's journey. And that was a successful journey, except for the outcome that was promised didn't happen. And I had no control over that. I couldn't make them give me a raise. And it was interesting that the big boss that had called me Frank, we were best friends by the end of because every week we're sitting there putting out fires, and his own, his what was on the line too, because we're in charge of all this stuff. Towards the end, we were really good friends. And he took me aside and said, listen, the best job here is my job, and you're better than that. So after Y2K, tell everybody you're on a special project with me. Come in every day, but don't do any work. Like, just relax. And he knew I postponed my wedding. We were getting married, and we did get married. So I would turn my monitor so you couldn't see what I was doing. I was playing Duke Nukem. And I knew the first layoff I'd be gone. But fast forward that, they're the lessons you have. So I always wanted to be like a doctor, but without those bodily fluids. And I was the guy, you could change my oil and I would do your taxes, and I would also do an E-Trade portfolio for you. Like I was that guy for my family or for friends and family. And because I had that chip on my shoulder that I just felt the rich got richer, and I didn't know why, I didn't have the information, it was unfair. And life is not only unfair, I can guarantee you with the 20 plus years of experience I have, it's a government program called accreditation. There are literal investments that are illegal for me to even advertise because I don't know you're accredited. And accredited is a government thing, and I'm regulated and registered. I'm an RIA, and I have we have it all. But it basically $1 million, you have to have $1 million in net worth, not counting your house, to even know, for even me to even educate you on it. So for some reason, the government thinks of $1 million, you're smart. And I think, Christian, you and I both know idiot millionaires. They fell in it. They are lucky. They inherited it. Doesn't make them smart. But to the government, that's the criteria. So I decided to go to a brokerage firm, a name you would know. I don't get sued. I don't want to get sued. I won't tell you. But it was fine. And this is where my son's story comes in. So I'm working at a big Fortune 500 tech company and Y2K. And for that company, we were in charge of the World Trade Centers and both the New York and the American Stock Exchange. So I felt like I had the world on my shoulder. I probably didn't. But if I did, I would have been fired and been the face of the company going backwards. So then I decided I would start being a financial advisor. I'd be a stockbroker, got the license. My first day of business, 9/11. I couldn't even drive. I couldn't even fly to St. Louis where the training was ending. I had to drive. And me and 3 other guys, none of which made the business. I did. Like they eventually get in the room, like, look to your left, look to your right. Only one of you will be here in 6 months. And that was true. And so that was my first day. And I literally, my office was near Vanguard when I was working for this firm. And I lasted 2 years. And what took me away from working for the firm was it was a sales organization. just happened to be financial services as the leveler. And I had my parents' money. I had every dollar they made. And like I said, hardworking people, they're no longer here. Hopefully they're somewhere else. I'll meet them again, but they're no longer here. I had a list with my dad's name on it and Merck as the stock. So I was smart but naive enough to call the investment 800 number for the investment firm for my company, like the investment committee. I'm like, hey, what's this Merck stock? Oh, it's the stock of the day. I'm like, how do you know these people need it? They have cash. Whoa. Just because they have cash doesn't mean they need Merck. They're like, yes, it does. Click. And I realized then it was a sales, and I had too much guilt. I wasn't going to do that. I wouldn't do that to my family. I wasn't going to do that to people that trusted me, because back then they trusted me because they knew me and they liked me. I wasn't in Forbes. I wasn't written about. I wasn't in the 30 states. Like all the things, if you Google me, I'm like, oh, I'm going to work with this guy. I had none of that. I was just like trying to do a good job. So my first business, and this gets to me to how the hockey stick happened. I left that firm, started my own company, and realized it's the same zip code as Vanguard. And in Chester County, where I'm at with Vanguard, great company, there's no loads to their mutual funds. There's no fees. If I was selling a commission financial advisor type of version of it back in the day and had a 5% commission, your $100 was $95. And that's if it didn't go down because the market went down. Mm-hmm. If you put $100 in Vanguard, it's worth $100, or it's worth whatever it's worth. There's no 5%. I don't know if you can see what's behind me, but I have a big Eagles fan. I love football. And if you have a 5% headwind, that's a 5% penalty on every play. So being in Vanguard's backyard, knowing I was never going to be cheaper, never going to be better, I did what any smart, lazy person does. They cheat. They look and see, okay, where do people with real money go really? Like not what we're told, not the mutual fund of the week or whatever. And no matter how much you search for this, you always end up at Harvard or Yale endowment. Now, I know they're in the news for a whole other reason, but 20 years ago and still to today, they manage money differently because they are an institution. And not everything they do is appropriate for anybody, but about 80% of their money isn't in the stock market. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I realized there's only about 5,400 tickers in the market. And we're all brought in to believe that it's a gigantic ocean and all these ships are out there. Every one of those ships are flat bottom and the ocean's 4 inches deep. Where the real money isn't there, because you have no control. You buy a stock. The thesis is, and again, I did this myself, but the thesis is buy, hold, and hope. You're hoping someone's a bigger idiot than you and pays you more than what you paid for, which to me isn't investing. It's legitimate gambling. So I focused on the 80% they had not in the market. I focused on what they did. And I found out about them when I was still at the other company that was a regular brokerage firm. And you know how there's financial advisor magazines, or there's magazines for skills, for different skill sets, HVAC magazines that are really meant for the person, not for the layman. So in this was an article about a company who's no longer here, but it's a good company when they were around. And they happen to have Wawa, which for us was a convenience store that's on every, it's part of who, if you're in the Philadelphia area, you know what, it's Wawa and Sheetz, and Wawa is who started here. And so I called, they were buying and sale lease backing Wawa, and it was a private investment, private REIT. So I called the company, and it was a Southern company. I'm like, hey, I'd like, what license? You need a Series 7. I'm like, I have that. Like, well, who do you clear through? So it was I'll do a horrible South Georgia accent. So who do you clear through, son? I'm like, I told her, and I drank the Kool-Aid of the firm, and she's like, oh, they're too big for us. And that was, again, another aha moment. What do you mean they're too big? Like, if everybody there sells what we're doing, we don't have enough Wawas or whatever it is. We don't have enough real estate to put them into. And I never thought of that, because I always thought bigger was better. But when you're trying to find unique investments and unique thesis, if everyone does it, it doesn't work for anyone. And so that was a second aha moment. And the biggest reason I left, in addition to all that, and again, that dad thing turned me off with the just sell your dad because he has cash and Merck's the stock of the week. We had a guy that was retired. He was my landlord. He owned the building, 1780 grist mill, redone into offices. So beautiful. I don't think it was haunted, but there's a room that my dog would not go into. And one day the post office was underneath it. The lady that ran the post office said, hey, were you in your office this weekend? I'm like, no. So someone was in your chair. I'm like, all right. So yeah, never had any good ghost stories. But the guy that owned the building emptied the trash every Wednesday. And I'd been divorced at this time. 9/11's behind me, but it's like trying to sell ice to Eskimos. And I'm questioning everything. Like why is everywhere I go? Like, I knew Y2K was coming. I didn't know I'd be in charge of it for the company. And I didn't know, no one knew 9/11 was coming, but I didn't think I'd be in financial services and quit my other job. And so and his name was Bob. I'm like, Bob, what did you do to make money? He's like, well, and I was still at the brokerage firm. He's like, what's your biggest margin product? I'm like, I don't know. Like my job is, hey, what's your favorite color, Christian? Well, that's mine too. Like you kind of, it's sales. And I didn't want to do it, but that was what we were trained to do. He's like, well, that's your first problem. Because if you don't know what's going to make you the most money, you're not going to get really good at it. And if you get really good at it and that's all you do, people will be attracted to that because they want specialists. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way. And so I'm like, all right, can I ask you what you did? He's retired. He's like, sure. And so there's a concept that I'm waiting, and I hope it happens again before I retire, because it has to have a certain interest rate and there has to be a good time for this. But he did this in the 90s. It's annuity life arbitrage. So I have an MBA. I know what words mean. I have no idea what that means. I'm like, all right, Bob, I know what are you talking about? So back in the day, you had to be an older person, so above 70, which is a target. Target market, a lot of people above 70, a lot more now. But what he would be able to do is put money into a kind of annuity that was old school and would pay you until you died. So if you live forever, pay you forever. Live for 2 days, paid you for 2 days. Like, it was definitely a very unique investment. And obviously, if you're married, you have kids, you have anyone that you want that money to go to, if you just do that, it doesn't work. So he tied it up with life insurance on, and I'll use you, Christian, since you're the host, life insurance on you for the same amount. So let's use $100,000. At the time, and this was for like a 73-year-old woman that we were looking at the numbers, we could get her $15,000 a year for the rest of her life, and it would cost $5,000 to replace that $100,000. And that $100,000, when she died, would go to her family and be tax-free. It's life insurance. And the bigger deals, and this is what he did. He didn't do it for 100. He did it for 10 million, 100 million. He did it for people that sold businesses. So he has 2 different insured products, and maybe if it's large, you do multiple versions of it. So it's not with one company, but no market exposure. So on that example, if I'm giving you 15 and it costs you 5, you're sitting on 10% for the rest of your life, guaranteed, and and a lot of it's tax-free because of the age. Now, again, this doesn't work today, but that was the other aha moment of, oh my God, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I was still at the old brokerage firm. And so I did the numbers, because we could sell an annuity, we could sell life insurance. And again, like I said, he emptied my trash, and him and his wife would vacuum the floor. He's like, I don't need a name. Give me a birthday, and I'll come back next Wednesday and show you what I did for a living. I'm like, all right. So he showed me that 15 and 5, and she gets to live on 10, which was awesome. And again, it wouldn't be for all of her money. That's a decent, I would still die for 10% in that strategy. Like, it would just be a no-brainer. Now, money's locked up, but do you care if you're making 10% and there's no risk, market risk? And so he ended up showing me what he did, even the companies he used, John Hancock, Hartford, whatever it was, I don't remember. So I can sell them at the firm I was with, so I put it in. Instead of paying 15, their annuity paid 12. And instead of costing 5, or their life insurance cost 5, his life insurance cost 5, doing the same company but through a brokerage firm was 9%. It's not worth doing for that spread. It's worth looking at for 10. It's not worth looking at for single digits. And that was the other aha moment of, okay, there's other things out there. So fast forward, we focused on alternatives. It's now a $3 trillion business. And I've been in left field my whole life, because even other advisors are like, why are you selling that stuff? Just put it in American funds, put it in Vanguard, like, do what everyone else is doing. I'm like, I don't think that's the right answer. We can't control, and there's no real value in that, buy, hold, and hope to me isn't a thesis. Every one of the annual reports of Harvard and Yale are out there. You can see them. I didn't. So I looked at what they were doing and said, okay, how do I get private real estate? How do I get private equity? And I couldn't do it under the brokerage firm that just wanted me to sell stocks and bonds and mutual funds. Mm-hmm. So I left. They sued me because I thought I'd be a partner, and I didn't want to be a partner. And so, and again, I'm still talking to Bob, the landlord, and I'm like, hey, I'm leaving, but they're suing me because they wanted me to be a partner, and they want me to pay for training because I had to door knock. It's like, you're not living your life if you're not getting sued. It's like, what do you mean? And like, he was a multimillionaire. He's like, to make it, you got to kind of rock the boat a little bit. And if you rock the boat enough, you're going to piss off people that just want to keep you where you are. They don't want you to try it. So what we ended up doing, was a one-man show. Now we're up to 9 people in one state. Now we're up to 30. And it's gotten to the point where everyone sees the hockey stick graph. You don't understand what it's like when you're on there. Like it was, I turned 52 years ago. And that 1 year, like 7 lifetime achievement awards for different areas. And I was just, it all showed up on the same point. And we have a PR guy, which is, again, weird. Christian, you know me. I'm not that kind of guy. We have a PR guy, and he's like, hey, Forbes keeps calling you, not calling them back. I'm like, I don't need to buy a subscription. And there's a version of a Forbes council where an advisor can pay, I think, 20 grand or something. So I can have that on my business card. I don't even own business cards now. But if I did, it would have all these things on it. So I'm like, I'm not paying for, at 50 plus years old and 20 years in the business, I don't need any bought valor, stolen valor. I don't need to lie about valor. So he's like, no, it's the editor. He wants to interview you and potentially pay you to write about alternative investments for Forbes. I'm like, all right, I'll take that call. Call me back. So I want to make sure you get some questions in there, but that basically they're the where I'm at now is a 20-year on the same path of doing alternatives in left field. And now the field is turned. And I think the most recent thing that we got a lot of press on, and this is a little bit scary because there's big firms that have reached out to us saying, hey, we love what you're doing. And that's kind of like Apple calling you saying, hey, we love that app you made, Christian. You know, I don't want to be on the radar either. And again, they probably have lawyers that are waiting for me to, so I'm not going to say, I'll tell you offline who they are, but two very, very, very large firms reached out to me and said, we love what you're doing. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know who I am. But about 5 years ago, and this is where the group that you and I are in, it kind of took a lot of traction there. The entire industry, including me, has a financial services industry, has a thesis that I think should be laughed at, but it isn't because it's the way of the world. It's kind of like, it's the way everyone does it, so no one thinks it's weird. Find someone you like, they charge you 1%, they put your money in harm's way in stocks and bonds, and then they give you advice. That's the whole industry. That was me most of my time as well. And then I pretended, and one of my only vices is I'll have a cigar every now and then. I own 4 patents, and all 4 came from cigar moments. So I'm not saying cigars are healthy or smart, but for me, that's how I still meditate, but I don't get good ideas of meditation. To me is about getting things, quietness, not thinking. Long story short, I pretended like I never left that Fortune 500 company. So hopefully I'd be the CIO, CEO, something with a C in the front of it, making a ton of money, have a ton in my IRA or my Roth and my 401k, but I wouldn't have any money to go hire Fred as an advisor. Executive Fred would have all his money tied up in stock options and restricted stock units and the whole 9 yards. So I went to Retainer-based Nobody even owned it. I bought it for 99 cents. I at least thought a lawyer would own it. Like retainer-based planning is kind of like happy birthday. Like we all know the words and it's all out there. So then I went to an IP lawyer. I'm like, hey, I want to trademark this because I think the business is upside down. If you can charge a retainer for advice and not care where the money goes, there's a niche there. And I think a very large niche with people worth a lot of money, and they're worth a lot of money because they're not at the Vanguards and the American funds. They're flipping houses. They're buying businesses. They're doing their own version of their own private enterprise. They're running a farm. Doesn't mean they have no money. Their money is better off doing what they're doing or diversifying. And those people are surrounded by salespeople because they need long-term care. They go find the guy that will sell them long-term care. And that guy's job or girl's job is to get you to pay the most expensive policy you say yes to, not find the cheapest that gets the job done. So I now own Retainer-based but I also own a trademark version of it because you can't trademark retainer-based planning just like you can't trademark vanilla ice cream. It's too generic. So we call it milestone clarification process. We have one for working professionals, which would have been me if I didn't leave my W-2. We have one for business owners, which is everyone that you and I know in our group that we're in, and high net worth retirees because they have all the money anyway. But we don't require any money. We don't require any assets to be with us. So we're agnostic. I put a ton of money at Vanguard, but it's not through me. I'm not charging 1%. So that was the beginning of our hockey stick. And it's interesting. It sounds like it should work. It sounds like it's the right thing. For 2 years, it was nothing. And I had paid for the patent. I had really got my heart set. I'm like, crap, this is what I want. And then it started to snowball. We had the first one. Hey, what's this retainer? I'm like, and the hard part is explaining it. So the only thing we do, and you asked before I can dumb it down because that's my specialty is dumbing it down because that's how I understand it. And if I do my job right, no one knows I have an MBA. They're like, dude, you talk like, football player. I'm like, yeah, because I used to work with them and I love, you have to dumb it down so that you can communicate. If I feel smarter than you, I'm not communicating to you. And that's just an insult of us. So for us, the only things we do is that agnostic advice. It's quarterly. You're not signing a long contract. If we can get your, what in order in 1 or 2 quarters, great, you're done. You're done in maintenance mode. The quarter's tax deductible. Like there's some really cool stuff there. So we do the advice and this is the core of the business, access to those alternative investments. So those investments, you need to have that certain net worth, which is a check, but then you need to work with someone that has access to those things. And the bigger the firm is, the less they have access to the smaller, better deals. It's just the way it works. So some of our deals are 40, 50, $60 million of capital raise. Vanguard just made that why I told you the story. Like it just, they probably made 500 million why I told you that story. So it's a very unique thing. It's fun to do what I do. This frustrating thing is because there's no frame of reference for the Christians of the world that we're talking to that like, hey, what do you do? I can't give you a fact sheet if I don't know who you are. I can't give you something you can go on S&P and see how many stars they are. They're private, and they're clicky. So the interesting thing is no one wants to pay taxes. We do a ton of oil and gas income tax remediation, and we don't make any products. We see what's out there. We're FINRA regulated. We have to make sure that the investment's good, and we have to make sure it's appropriate for the client. And a lot of this, the alternatives we do for our retainer clients, we're in the world with them. And if someone's worth 5 million and above, and you probably have seen this in your own life, the bigger your financial resources are, the smaller and harder the shell around you and your family has to get. Because everyone wants a piece of you. They want to be employed by you, or they want to go on your boat, or whatever it is. And they might generally like you. I'm not saying they're fake, but there's too many moving parts. And one of the takeaways I want to make sure your audience gets is you do need to say yes to things that people say no to kind of break through. But then you have to be self-aware that superpower can become your kryptonite. And you and I both know a lot of people that get shiny object syndrome when they get exposed to new deals and they buy stuff that they didn't, because what got them there was saying yes to these new deals and these new ideas and these indications, and I'll work with this guy to flip a hotel or whatever he's doing. That getting there is a skill set of saying yes and taking the risk, and hopefully it pays off, and being smart about what risk you do. But then you need to be able to say no. That becomes your superpower. If saying yes was your superpower to get you there, saying no is your superpower to stay there. And it's hard. I too have lost money, not in deals I've done, but deals I've shared with people, and I partner with people. And so it happens to everybody, and you have to be self-aware. And so, I'm going to land the plane, as my wife would say, and let you ask me any questions, but they're the nuggets that have changed the trajectory of my life. And at some point I didn't know it was happening until afterwards. I'm like, oh, how'd this happen?
Yeah.
I'm going to land it there. I'll let you ask the question. Yeah. This is your show, by the way, not Fred's show.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I was just kind of drinking it up because I'm wrapping my head around this concept, and it's so neat to hear your story. You started off basically working, sounds like for Don Draper, and then they put you in the room to hopefully save the day for Y2K. I was on stage at a bar, when the ball dropped at the Millennium, playing 1999 by Prince. So we were in very different places, but not too far apart age-wise. But it's cool to hear that story, and then sounds like you got into the industry and saw kind of how it worked and just didn't love that trajectory. So you kind of made your own path based on you saw an opportunity in the marketplace. You saw what worked and what was the traditional path, and then you wanted to create products for people that give them access that they normally wouldn't get. And I think that's what I like the best about your story, is because it is crazy that the government pulls this arbitrary number out, like you said, like $1 million. Then you're all of a sudden, you're an astute investor, you're accredited, you're sophisticated in their opinion, and now you can play the game. But that just leaves the door closed for so many people who are very smart. Maybe they just haven't built a net worth, or they just haven't figured out how to go through the process or jump through the hoops just to actually get accredited, because you have to have an accountant do it, or you have to have a third party verify it, or jump through all these hoops. It's a lot of paperwork just to prove that you have that net worth. So I think it's really cool, dude, that you actually created this back door. It's legit, clearly, but an access hatch for people to look behind the curtain and invest where all the big boys are. It is, because it's kind of like that movie was Eyes Wide Shut, parties, that's where the real money is made. The deals are done behind closed door. The general public doesn't have access to those types of investments at all. So to offer that, I think it's cool. So are you just a fee based, and do you have a fiduciary responsibility to these people by law, or?
We're kind of complicated on purpose, but we're complicated because we're doing something different than anyone. We have a RIA side, so that's a registered, fiduciary. That's for the planning. That's the quarterly planning, and then we also have a broker dealer access. That's how we get access to these alternative investments that are sticky and are real estate based, or oil and gas tax credit. They're out there on the market. They're not built for me. They're not mine. They're not Creative Capital, but they are registered products. So when you are duly licensed, the more restrictive fiduciary trumps the everything else. So even though we have a broker-dealer side, everything's under the fiduciary. We're obligated for it.
Yeah, you always by the rules, basically.
And get to your point, my biggest pain point was all those original investors that we talked about, investors in us, or clients of ours that are, who only liked me and knew me, and that's why they came here. We just recently found alternative investment that don't have that high accreditation. So there's a private equity, 70,000 net worth is your net. Well, we have kids of our clients that are making 70,000 after college. It's not it's a nice number, but it's not as crazy as $1 million net worth, 70,000. So all of those older clients who have been here 10 or 20 years, if it's appropriate, or if we have their kids now and it's appropriate, and we can do private equity for those types of people. There's some real estate plays that really mimic our alternative side. So that to me was important to lift up. I lift up the velvet rope for people that have the net worth but didn't know how it existed, and didn't want to be sold a bill of goods. Like, we don't make anything. I don't work for anyone but my client, so I don't have to sell the same thing every year. We do the due diligence, but I wanted to lift that rope even higher to get the regular folks in, because that's who my mom and dad were. Until the very end, they weren't accredited. I got them there, hopefully. I had to make sure before they went, that they got to see some of the stuff, because it is so much easier for me to do the right thing using different products than just putting it in the market and hoping things work out, and that the tariffs don't make the market go 300 points. And so to us, that's fun, because when 2008 happens, our stuff's okay. And so then we have a lot of instances in which the clients are like, hey, I've never seen this before. Is it Bernie Madoff? And you have to explain it's not. And here's it. And now that I write for Forbes, I'm like, here's an article about it. And then I'm not the only one writing about some of these things, so they can see other articles. And then when the market goes down and their stuff doesn't, I get the same phone call. Hey, this can't be legal. My friend's down 40% during 2008, 50%. I haven't missed a penny. Like, yeah, you're in a private real estate that's not for sale yet, and they're not going to appraise it when it's not for sale. So tenant's still in there. It was an Amazon distribution center for that client, sale lease back for them. So they're getting the income. And so that part is fun when, like, you're okay. It's kind of like a get out of jail free card. We're limited to, and this is part of the rules we have to follow, of a certain percentage of your net worth. No more than 20, 25% in total can be in these things.
Yeah, okay.
If you said, here's $1 million, 20%, I can do these really illiquid and fairly complicated, but they're going to usually do what they're going to do. And then we try to be creative, no pun intended, with even the half that isn't accredited. So we have some buffer strategies. We have some collar. We outsource the managers, because I don't want to be fired. I'd rather fire the manager that we hired and pick another manager. So after 20 years, I do a lot of things right, because I did do a lot of things wrong, or I trusted producers or trusted platforms that they lied, or they didn't know the cracks in their own system. So we diversify as much as we can. I grew up with the X-Files, kind of like with you and Ronald Reagan. I trust no one, and trust but verify. Like that's just who we are. It's how we were wired, and it's served us well, because everything works until it doesn't. And so if you say, okay, if this doesn't work, what's it look like? Well, if it's real estate and it doesn't work, it just means you have to hold it a little bit longer to sell it a little bit later. But if you own the downline real estate, you don't own the company that owns real estate, but you own the real estate, you could do a 1031 and never pay taxes and get depreciation. And so there's just different avenues to do it. And that helps referrals go through the roof. You help someone not pay taxes because you do an oil and gas income offset, or they watch Landman and like, hey, can you do what Landman's doing? Like, yeah, here's how, we can do it. Not using Billy Bob Thornton, but
Yeah.
So they're the fun stuff. And if any of your listeners, because the problem, again, when you're doing something different, it's hard to have a frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
Alternative investments is kind of like the color blue. I don't know what color blue is in your head when you say it. Mine, it'll be that greenish blue, because that's kind of around me everywhere. Same thing with alternative investments. So if you're the articles that I wrote for Forbes are free to everybody. So they pay me to write them. They don't pay me. I'm not selling them to you. There's no, you don't have to pay to see them. If they put my last name in at Forbes, they'll see all my articles. They can subscribe. I'm coming out with every 2 to 3 weeks, a new article. I don't sell product. I'm like, here's what oil and gas does for you. Here's what it doesn't do. We're doing alternatives for a potential recession, because I think that's important to know what's out there. And I did just do a Landman article. I thought that was funny. I did one for comparing Taylor Swift to an alternative investment, because I want my 13-year-old daughter to like me, and she likes me. But we also have a little bit of a competition. When she was younger, she had a YouTube channel where she played with slime, and she had more subscribers on her slime channel than I did for my Forbes channel. And I probably shouldn't have been competitive with my 12-year-old daughter at the time, but I am. No, sorry. So I knew she's wired like me. We were at the dinner table. She was like, Dad, can I read your Taylor Swift article on Forbes? Like, yeah. Like, do I have to subscribe? Like, why don't you want to subscribe? Because I don't want your numbers being higher than my numbers. Like, you are my daughter. Yeah. Thank you very much. Go read the article. You don't have to subscribe. Yeah. So she made me so proud. My son's like, I don't care what you read. I love them. They're just different people. He's like, Dad, I don't care about Taylor Swift, and I don't care about alternative investments. Like, but you can subscribe and get my numbers up. He's like, oh, I've already subscribed. I want you to beat Abby. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
It's a team effort. I love it. So you must be constantly like vetting new investments, because if you're going to advise people, you got to make sure that you know what you're looking at. So the amount of scrutiny you must put on these must be intense. Does that basically make you always having to stay current with every single financial You know,
So I have a team. I got some, I'm not the quant. I like the trends. And the interesting thing is because I don't directly have clients anymore. And I tell the clients I used to have, I'm like, listen, I used to drive your train. I now run the railroad. I have to make sure the tracks are going the right place. But you have an engineer who's a salaried person in my office. We have nine salaried people. So when you match the quant idea with, and so great example, one of our clients, again, a retainer client, he was using NetJets to travel a lot. He has multiple franchises around the country. And I asked him, and again, you work with someone long enough, you become friends. I'm like, hey, are you taking NetJets to go just yell at people at at the restaurants? Like, why I take my NetJets is my business, which it was funny back and forth. So I'm like, hey, by the way, if you ever want to buy a jet, we can help you out with that. And I don't broker jets, but really the math behind it. So long story short, you can write off 100%, depreciate 100% of the jet you buy. And we found, with his help, he made some phone, a firm that will charter it when he's not using it. So he goes from paying $250 to making $350 in charter, and he got to write down $7 million off his income.
in the first
All legal,
year.
all legit, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, hey, want to go to meet my parents? They're already clients of mine. And you know me because you've seen me in person. But when you meet someone for the first time, I can read their mind. And I say to them, like, yeah, I can read your mind. Like, what do you mean? You thought I was taller. Because on Zoom, I look fine. In real life, I'm 5'4", and I'm coming up to your armpits. So I meet his family. I make the same joke. But on the way back, I'm like, hey, if I wanted to open up my first restaurant of your franchise, of the franchises he has 18 of, and you want to open up number 19, do I have a chance? He's like, no, of course not. I'm always going to have first dibs. And if someone has 1,000 and wants to open up, they have first, like it's always, again, life's not fair. So what I look for, and this is one of the thesis when you're talking about, all these investments, is there a legal, ethical, and moral unfair advantage? So using that franchise model, there's nothing wrong with the franchise company giving you the ability to open up your sixth store versus them giving me a chance to maybe not screw it up with my first. Like, it makes complete sense. I'm not angry about it. Like, I wouldn't give it to me either if you had 17 and you want to open up number 18, or you had 3 and want to open up number 4. But there's an advantage there to you or to the bigger fish. So we land, I go my way, he goes his way. I go into the office the next day. I'm like, all right, is there any investment that does this? Turns out there was. Now it's closed now, which is why we're talking. I'm not soliciting. All they did, and this is a simple idea, and my team knows this, and I think it's a good litmus test for any of your listeners, and probably you and I could follow this as well. The thesis on why this could make money, whatever the investment, can't fit on the cocktail napkin from a wedding, like little tiny, those white little, you know what I'm talking about, the real cheap little tiny. If you can't write down why it makes money there, don't do it. So in this regard, what this company does is they work with 3 franchises, and they work regionalized, and they go after baby boomers who have stores that need CapEx. And so they know that the franchise company knows that if I'm buying a new store, I'm going to put money into it because that's my deal. I'm taking investor money, I'm making it. And if you make a Taco Bell into a new Taco Bell or a Wendy's, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's like a 28% return bump when you update the restaurant. That's just the way the math works. And I am worried about Ruth Chris's, but I'm not worried about that in a recession because I'm not investing there. I'm not worried about fast food, and they want to call quick service. And there's an article on Forbes about it. But long story short, I learn by my clients where they made money, and is it appropriate for us to do it for other people? So being on this plane with the client, coming back, finding out how it really works, we then found a firm. It was FINRA regulated. Like, again, I'm not making it up. All they did was find, and then we look at it from all angles. So one of the things that I would be concerned about if I worked for a fast food is the neighborhood barbecue that you have. Well, where do you work? I work at Burger King, right? Whatever it is, like no matter what fast food it is, you're not walking in there like you own the joint because, I'm going to go over and get a beer. What this company does is it's not under, you work for the private equity firm that just happens to do this as a business. So your golf shirt doesn't say Burger King or Taco Bell or KFC or whatever the franchise. It says a private equity firm. And and they have 300 stores in this portfolio, all been, adding CapEx, increasing the return on income, and they're going to sell it to someone that rhymes with BlackRock probably. Just sell it to someone bigger who's going to gobble it up, who isn't in the business of fixing things up. They're in the business of having fixed up things and owning them.
Sure. Which
is great. So we know the exit. But I looked at them like, no one wants to work there. Like, they're not working here. They're working for the private equity firm. They're a director of 17 KFCs or 150 tacos, whatever it is. And so that then checks off all the issues I would have as a person that worked there, as an investor. And then they also get economies of scale because you're not buying chicken for one store, you're buying whatever it is. Again, it doesn't matter. And then the thing that really, for us, sealed the deal was because the franchise companies, it's multiple franchises, we're not betting on one, in this one fund, they now, if you have a run of these restaurants in one of the areas where this private equity works, you have to give it to them a right of first refusal. So there's another unfair advantage. You can sell to anyone you want as long as this company says no.
As long as they pass.
Because they know if I buy it from you and I'm not private equity, I'm probably not going to add a lot of money to it. I just bought your store. I'm not going to add money to it. Mm-hmm. You sell it to this other firm who's built to add money to it, to make it look better, to make it be better, so they can sell it in 5 years. The franchise companies will always want me. So they're able to get it for like 4 times EBITDA versus 6 points, because you can't sell it in those areas for 6.7 EBITDA. So anyway, that's kind of a feedback loop that I think if you look at life, you can find things out. Your business will tell you what you need to fix. Your clients will tell you what you need to fix. For us, it's about generating wealth in a legal, ethical, and morally, way that we can sleep at night, and finding those things that check off those boxes, don't hurt anybody, but make money no matter what the stock market does. And that's our, it's worked for 20 years. Hopefully it'll work for another 20 years. My kids are 13, so they got to go work at a Vanguard and screw it up before they come work here. And maybe they won't, as you know, they probably never will work here, but we have 9 other people and they have kids. It's interesting. Our managing director, his son works here when he's not in college. So it's like a tree house in a good way. Like, it's really fun.
I love it, dude. It sounds like you built like an empire, and it's something definitely to be proud of. And I love the fact that you've got it on the horizon for the kids. And it's awesome, dude. I really enjoyed talking with you today and learning about this. Always, you hear creative, and it's such a generic term when it comes to investing, but now to kind of look behind the curtain and see what some of these investments look like, private equity and some of these arbitrage models. It's just cool. So tell us, before we wrap up, who's your target avatar now for someone to talk to you, and then where can they find you and learn more about you and what you're doing?
So CCWMG is where they can find me. There's a lot of information there. Forbes.com with the last name Hubler, Hubler. Read about it. You can use your own advisor if he has access to it. But I think that's a good value add. Mm-hmm. Our avatar, business owners, working professionals, or retirees. We do and could help someone that's not accredited, but we'll look a lot like everyone else because, again, there's nothing we're doing crazy different there. For the ones that are accredited, if they have an investment property they want to sell, we can do things that they probably don't even know or are allowed to do. Or you sell it, not pay taxes, and move into a passive ownership of a $600 million Amazon or something like that. So we can do a lot of, oh my God, I didn't know that existed, for accredited clients. If they just want a review, that's where the retainer base comes. And we can do an analysis and see if you even need us. We're not going to waste your time, your money, my time, your money, my money, your time. We're not going to do that. So if they go to ccwmg.com, there's a place that says start a conversation. And that's all it is. It's a conversation. You'll get one of our team. We're in a business that's primarily, when you're independent like we are, we're not with a big firm. We are the firm. Most people are split rep codes. I built a fairly more expensive overhead. Everyone's salary. No one makes a commission on anything. We're not trying to, boiler room, not trying to do a Don Draper, want to buy bond. We get bonuses if the business does well. It's me, my wife, and my 2 kids. I share the wealth. But they can come in as a retainer and not even have to change anything. So if someone's worth, let's say, $5 million and above, they want someone to be their family office. Mm-hmm. Without having to move family office money over, because it's in their real estate, it's in their mobile home park. It may be with their brother-in-law that's a great stock jockey at Merrill Lynch. Great. We complement those people. We don't have to take over the world. And our retainer typically is $5,000 a quarter. We adjust it up and down. So if you have $100 million worth and you have no idea where any of it is, I'm probably going to charge you more than $5,000 a quarter because we got a lot of work to do.
Yes, some homework.
The interesting thing is most people have businesses. So if that retainer goes to your business, you can write us off your income. It's an expense.
Nice, yeah.
So we do have clients that have us for the retainer, and they say, hey, can you still manage my money? Because even if you send me an email saying, hey, make this move over at Vanguard, I don't have the time. I'm a doctor, I'm a contractor, I'm a builder, whatever. So they bring that money over. I'm like, okay, I can charge you 1% like everyone else, or I can charge you no percent and just update your retainer. They do the retainer all the time. And that way no one can write off 1% of assets. You're not allowed. I don't charge anything on that. for some of these clients. I just charge them a retainer, professional services retainer. It covers the fact that I'm looking at those assets and I'm managing it for them, but I'm not charging anything on them. So it's a win-win. There's a lot of unfair, again, legal and ethical and moral unfair advantages doing my way, other than explaining it that we're different. We're a retainer. You don't have to give us any money. Sometimes they need the access to the alternatives.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I can do it all day. My only question for you, Chris, is what is on the record player behind you?
On the record player behind me, right?
Yeah. Do you even know?
Right now, it's Don Ho's greatest hits. It's
okay. Have you been an 80-year-old woman your whole life, or is this just a recent transition?
Pretty much my whole life, yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Tiny bubbles, man. Tiny bubbles.
I love tiny bubbles. Well, I could talk forever, and I apologize if I talk too much.
No, you're perfect, man. It's been awesome, and I think it's cool. The last thing that we'll leave our folks with is because I want them to be able to reach out to you to learn about some of these creative ideas. Even the fact that you say that just subverting the management fee, the 1% fee, and wrapping it into your retainer is another way to provide value for your clients. They can see that because then it becomes an expense they can write off versus just something they have to absorb. So I think that
if you're in good stuff over at the other place, it comes over in kind. Like we don't have to change what they did, and so it is not fair for the other side of the transaction. And I'm sorry, but sometimes people eat my lunch and sometimes I eat people's lunch. I know what we're doing is the right answer. And I think it's going to be the way going forward. Because at the end of the day, you should be paid for the advice, not the product you buy.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Financial services is the last place that's being true. Everywhere else, you're getting interior design advice and then you buy the furniture, but they're not making the money on the furniture. They're charging you on the advice to make sure the furniture fits. So it's the same thing other industries have done. I don't like to reinvent the wheel. It's just difficult to be the first one pushing the wheel in a new direction. But I kind of I kind of like it. I kind of like being that outsider because it's going to come this way, and I just see it before other people see it.
Yeah, well, I like it. I'm kind of in that same MO. I like fee-based. Like you don't have to have a piece of my wealth for the rest of your life. I'll pay you for your expertise, and I'll pay you handsomely for it now. Get me in the right direction, and then we stay in business longer that way. And then people don't feel like you adopted your money manager because they get a piece of your action every month. It's like, no, we're partners. We work together. He helps me build with his expertise versus him just taking a piece of my lunch every day. So I think
our retainer allows you to do stuff that's not with me. Hey, go buy that next business, versus if I was a regular guy and I had to bring in a new AUM, no matter what you showed me outside of me, I'd find a reason not to do it. And that, not just me personally, but that's how salespeople are. Our retainer, we have clients that have money at Vanguard. We advise them, but we don't charge anything for it other than the retainer. Because, hey, we have the system, we can see it. So as I said, I can talk forever, and I was afraid we wouldn't have anything to say. And now I'm afraid I talk too much.
No, you're great, dude. It's a wild industry. It really is. And so that's why I really appreciate your time learning.
And I'm happy to be back. I scratched the surface on some of those things. I can go over my TED talk at some future point, but honored to be on your show. I hope, let me know when it's done. I'll propagate it my way.
Awesome, dude.
Anything I can do for you, you know how to reach me.
Yes.
Here to help.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much for joining us. And I definitely will meet you at the next Abundance event we do. We'll have a couple beers, maybe a stogie, because I've got more questions for you. So we'll definitely have you back again. Ladies and gentlemen, awesome, man. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. This has been the Build Better Blueprint. I'm Christian Cardamone. That's Fred Hubler, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
That's it, folks. That's our show. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with the latest episodes. Feel free to share with your friends and keep up the great work. You are on the right path. See you at the top.